My name's Pete Hamill. I am the team leader for the land and water section of the environmental science team at the Marlborough District Council. And when I was having a chat with one of my colleagues about that I was going to come and have a talk to some farmers and land care group about E. coli and waterways and things like that, they told me that they thought I was pretty brave. Because especially in the light of some of the stuff that's come out with the essential fresh waters and the likes of what we're going out and standing up in front and talking about it. But I don't see that as all. I'm from the science team of the council and I don't have any hidden agendas. I don't have something that I'm trying to push or whatever. What I'm going out there is trying to find facts, what's going on in the waterways, and so we can actually present that information, and so we've got the knowledge that's what there, and then come up with a solution as everybody together. And I haven't really met, I'd like to say none, but there's one farmer in particular that I've come across, but I've never really met farmers that don't want to make a difference, that they want their water to be polluted and things like that. It's not, everybody wants to have a nice clean waterways and all the rest of it, but it's about the knowledge and understanding of knowing where that's coming from. And so from my point of view from the council, we're out there to provide that information in a clear, concise way so that we can all work together and find out where it is. And it's not always the thing that comes through from councils, because obviously councils have two different roles, and especially with us unitary ones at the top of the south there, we've got the guys that are in there, the compliance, and that's mostly what we get tarred with. We've got a council guy coming onto your farm, oh, it's compliance, it's going to be a terrible problem. But I use the analogy of the police. We've got the community constables and things that come around to your property and the district and looking after it. And they're the good guys. They're out there to help you make a difference and all the rest of it. But we also have the guys that are in red and cars that sit along the edge of the road. And when we're racing past and we get one of those takes a pretty snapshot of us, it annoys us. Oh! But that's kind of where the council fits in as well. We have got the compliance guys that are there making sure that everybody follows the rules, but we've also got those other teams that are there, that are actually there to help. We provide information and to work through as much as we can on that. And so having to talk about E. coli to me isn't a really big issue at all. And these first things are just the same old you heard this morning, that it's an indicator organism for the other things like Campylobacter and the likes, so it's just but you've heard that. This is the type of photo when you talk about E. coli and waterways that especially the media loves to put the photos and put up the black and white cow sitting in a waterway with its tail up, and we're right there. And that's sort of what really winds people up at everything. And yes, it's a problem that happens there, but there's a lot of things and reasons why E. coli gets into water, and we've heard this morning, so I'm going to go really through. We've got ducks, and we've got dogs, and we've got sheep, and we've got people. And that's a particular problem for us in Marlborough, that in E. coli and our waterways, and one of the things that comes up in Marlborough always is the Taylor River that runs through the centre of Blenheim. We've got little signs up to saying, don't swim in there. And that is essentially because we had an earthquake 3 years ago which broke 23 kilometres of drainage network under the town, and trying to fix those is a long and slow process. And we know we've got cross-contamination of stuff like this, where the toilet stuff's getting mixed up and getting overflows through the air. So urban areas do have problems, and we monitor those as well and look after them. But E. coli in waterways can be a problem. If you've got cows going through in waterways and things like this, it is a problem. And in Marlborough in the past, we used to have scenarios like this where we saw lots of cows going through and causing some issues. And if you went and looked downstream of the crossing, you got, and just doing a little kick sample of macroinvertebrates, you got stuff looking like this. And if you think about the volumes, and Richard talked earlier about the volume of a cow pat and how many billion bacteria in there, we often get people say, oh, it's the ducks, it's the swans, it's the whatever. But you take the size of a duck poo compared with how many cow poos and the number of things, and it sort of builds up. But there are things we can do about it, and that's part of the Marlborough experience that I'm going to talk about today, of things that have happened so that we're not getting this scenario coming through. And one of the things is that what happened in the Rye Valley, we went and identified through monitoring all of the sites where we had these dairy crossings, where cows were going across the creeks on a regular basis. And we talked with the landowners, and we got culverts and bridges and things put in, And we found out then, if we went down and monitored our waterways below it, we were getting samples that were a lot more like this, a lot more sort of leaves and critters and things going out in our waterways. And so we really picked off the key indication that was causing some of our issues there was those stream crossings. And working with the landowners, we actually got some really good mileage with that. And what we found that over the time, and there's hopefully some data that someone can use in the future, is that looking at our 95th percentiles and things over a 5-year stuff, we actually found that it was in this period here when we started introducing and looking at our stream crossings and things, and this is the Rye Valley, and we can see that we've actually had improvement over the times, over the years, back in sort of from 2006 to 11, through there we have had an increase in water quality. The E. coli levels have dropped over time through there, and that is solely attributed from our stuff to the good work that the landowners have done. We've put in over 100 crossings in that catchment, and so it's eliminating those long-term crossings that people the cows going over multiple times a day, and etc. So we are showing that data is making a difference. So the work that has been doing through the community is actually working. One of the things that, and there was a question asked earlier, is how do we know whether E. coli is a problem? What do we do? Where do we monitor it and things like that? And for the Marlborough scenario is that we've got 35 sites across the district that we might monitor on a monthly basis. So every month we go out and we monitor it. And we monitor that, whether it's a day like this today that's pouring down rain or it's a low flow, we just monitor on a particular time. And so that we get the whole difference of scenarios, because we're looking at it from the state of the environment monitoring, so we want to look at it in all scenarios and see where we go from there. And we're looking at it for the worst case scenario. We want to see if something's happening up here, it'll wash down, it'll come down all the little tributaries and exit the lowest point. So the yellow dot here in the catchment, that's where we monitor, is we want to actually see the worst case scenario. And from there we can start looking and saying, okay, these catchments are where the water quality is good, bad, or whatever. And so we've got a pretty good spread across Marlborough where we're monitoring. And we monitor for a whole different series of parameters, which E. coli is one of them that we monitor through there. And so we are getting a lot of information, and we've been doing this in a regular process since 1996, so we've got a good lot of data about going where things are at over that amount of time. And so what we do in Marlborough is we grab all of that information that we have from the monitoring of those sites across the district, and we pop it into a water quality index. And that water quality index looks at all the different parameters, and it allows us to rate and rank them across time. And what we do is we get 3 years worth of data and put it in, so if we get a one wet season, it doesn't skew the information or whatever, and it ranks them all out. And so you can see down this side and of all the different catchments that we have, and so we can rank them from top to bottom. And so we put these bands in through, and so the top part there, if it meets that, if it comes past this little line here, means the water quality is excellent. If it's in this band through here, it's good. If it's in this lot, it's fair. And down this part, it's marginal. And we get right down the bottom is poor. So we can rank all of our waterways of where we're going there. And it's pretty cool. And I must acknowledge that our water quality scientist, Steffi Henkel, has managed to get all this water quality index and do this analysis to get this information for us. And so what happens from there is we get an indication of where they all are at. But what is the cause of those? Where's the water quality? Why is if we pick the lower artery down the bottom here, why is that so poor? And where we're going to go from that. So what we do with that is we say, well, anything in the fair or above is acceptable. We really want to concentrate and look at our waterways that are in the lower part of that, and sort of in the potentially not acceptable stuff. And I've put the word potentially here for a specific reason. And that is because we can see what the causes of that's coming from. So essentially what blue lines here, that's our index rating it. And so if they were all to go up to 100 and be all excellent, that's the amount of difference that would need to be. And so what we can do is we can break that down into all of the different parameters that are contributing towards that decline in water quality. And if we look at the bottom one, the Awatere, it's low. We've got this great big band of grey through the bottom here. And if we look over the side here, we see that the grey is the turbidity. And if anybody knows the Awatere River in Marlborough, every time you drive past it, it's grubby. It's always dirty, you can't see into it. But that is part of through 30, 40 k's up the river. The river runs through an area of really soft, erodible mudstone. And so it's a natural phenomenon. It's dirty and turbid through geological processes that are causing it. But with that, we can then start looking at all these other different parameters, and we go up through and see where they are. And essentially we pull them out and show what our water quality index is like. And so we've got the ones with the green bars are nitrogen, etc. And it's these little pinky coloured bars are the ones that are where E. coli starts to be the contributing factor towards it. So we have an idea of what the different parameters are, and so we can look at, say, okay, this is a turbidity issue that's going through here, it's a nitrogen issue, or it's an E. coli issue. So we've divided them all up to see where they're coming from. And the next step we take from that is actually turning it through to actually say how are things changing over time. And it's pretty hard to look on the slide and things, so it's just a conceptual thing at the moment. You don't need to recognise and understand what everything is. But if you look, some of these got little green hashes. Those ones with the little green hashes there are saying the water quality in those has improved over the last 3 years. And we can see over here and see that it's pretty hard to see on the screen, but we can see what of the different factors that has improved. Have we got less nitrogen or less E. coli or whatever? So it's just to really reinforce that the councils have a lot of this information that we're building through. And so when we're talking that we've got an issue with E. coli in a waterway, or we've got an issue with nitrates and things, it's not something we just sort of grab and think, oh, it's an issue. We've gone through and analysed the whole lot. So what we do then is we go out and we carry out what we call our catchment characterisations. And that is about going into the particular catchment and starting to find out through a process of elimination what the issues are. And so as showed that image slide further early on that had the catchment and all the different bits of tributaries coming in to the bottom of the catchment. Our sampling at the bottom of the catchment has said there is an issue here with one of those parameters. What we then go is process elimination, go back up through and monitor all of the other different tributaries of that catchment. And some of them have got up to 36 other monitoring stations which we monitor for a year on a monthly basis to get an indication of what's going on with water quality for that. And that gives us a really good indication of what the cause is and where we can sort of eliminate it and sort of really focus in on the sources and the causes. Sometimes it's really easy. One particular example we had in E. coli, we focused it down, we're having a problem, focused it back up, and one of the landowners had piped his septic tank directly into the stream, and we could pick that up through that, fixed it, and we have a problem. And so we've solved that issue and things. Some of them are a little bit more harder because it's more diffuse and things, and that's where we've come up and have this catchment enhancement planning through catchment care programs. So we go to the particular part of the catchment, sub-catchments. We're not doing stuff on the whole catchment because it's really hard to deal with. We focus in on a smaller group of them as a sub-catchment, and we're developing these catchment care programs where we can actually look at it and work through with the community. And this is something that is just in our new plan, which is hopefully out just after Christmas. And that will be sort of developed through from there. And what we want to do is try to assist those catchment care groups through facilitation and etc. through there. So we've done a few of these across the district so far, and so now I'm just going to really run through and say some of the learnings and some of the things we've found out specifically in relating to E. coli in regards to those waterways. And so one of the ones that we had, which was on the bottom of that list, was the Linkwater catchment, which is between sort of Havelock and the Queen Charlotte Sound. And we went out and we monitored over the year. I think there's 24 extra sampling sites across these catchments. And we found out, and we've mapped it up showing where the water is. we can see there's this bright sort of red part coming in on this one particular part of the catchment. We were actually getting elevated concentrations, and it's just a colour grade based on the concentrations we've got there. And what we found, it was a low intensity beef farm, but it was completely unfenced and the cattle had access directly to it. But we looked at some of the other waterways, and like Ada Creek and things through there, which it runs right through the middle of a dairy farm. It had great riparian margins and the water quality was okay, and so we would actually could start to focus in on the exact cause, so that we're not actually looking at just one land use and making assumptions through with that. So yeah, if we just zoom in on that particular area, and then we've got some photos through there, and so we can see this little red part that's coming where we were monitoring, and it's just the low intensity beef cattle, absolutely no fencing. They could just have access to the waterway whenever they want, and we know cows like water and they go in and they'll bog around and all the rest of it. We have these other ones where the water quality's in blue, so it's coming along good, and then all of a sudden it starts to be degraded again before slowly getting better. And it was some of these things, just like your little stream crossings here, just a tiny little critical source area. With a little bit of work you could fix it up and eliminate that problem through it. And then we had some of the orange ones which were getting up there, and it was just a narrow area of riparian margins, but it still had stock access. Stock were getting in there. There were still fresh cow pats in that riparian margin and things, and so even though it was fenced off there, they were getting in somehow, and so that we were getting those cow pats appearing just on the side of these margins and then things through here. And then right in the middle of the dairy farm we had a nice wide riparian strip, lots of vegetation, and down below it we're having really good water quality that was coming through, and so it was meeting the E. coli standards. So that was sort of the experience we found through there. Low intensity beef cattle, plenty of access to the streams, was actually causing a hot spot, and it got better downstream through the process of dilution. Essentially there were smaller creeks, and in the bottom of there we're getting groundwater starting to emerge through the bottom of the stream, and so just as the more and more water came through, dilution started coming through. And we found a few there in that area where we had some of the cattle races were causing a problem, where just the cows coming in, and you can see there's just direct access through here as they come in under the stock crossing, access straight under. Little solutions that could be easily fixed as we go through. Another one we had was in Doctors Creek, and Doctors Creek is the one that joins the Taylor, and this is the centre of Blenheim as it runs through here. We were having troubles with some high readings coming through from time to time. We again did our characterisation study, and again it came up with a low intensity beef was causing a problem. In this area here there was a group of cattle, and there was only about 10 or 15 of them, and they had a very large area to wander around in, but they had complete freedom to get into the creek. And what even made it worse is there was one big willow tree hanging over the creek, providing all of the shade, and that's exactly where they went, and they just stomped around in there. And we looked at it. We gave this information to the landowner once we'd analysed it and looked at it. Within a week he'd fenced that area off, put some troughs around, and had planted some shade trees in the rest of his farm, because it was that, again, that knowledge of giving the landowners knowledge, and they reacted to it. And so that was a really good outcome, and we have actually started to see changes in the E. coli coming through that level after that time. Another one we did was the Ariari Creek. This is one that we had were problems through, and quite regularly getting high exceedances in E. coli as we went. And with that one, it was essentially the main sources that we're finding was low intensity beef again, unfenced streams, and high intensity sheep. And what we did is we went and had a look through as we sampled, and we took note of whether there was sheep there at the time of sampling or whether they were recently there. And this sort of graph gives you sort of the intensity of the sheep. And we found that right up here we were having strip-fed grazed sheep hard against the edge of a waterway. Any time it rained we were getting the entire stuff through, and even when it wasn't raining they were so close to the waterway and they're actually stomping through and trying to eat the watercress and things out of the side of the creek. And so we were getting that input from the sheep coming through there. And as we come down, some of these little tributaries, we actually found that they didn't need to be right there at the time. As soon as you got a little shower of rain and things, and it relates to the length of time that E. coli will last, is that we were still getting those higher results. And so you can see that some of them, like sheep, were actually giving quite an issue there. And this one here was one that we also found, which was poor sewage and management from the farm. The disposal field was going basically from the septic tank, hadn't been cleared for a long time. It was just oozing out, leaking across the land and into a creek. And so we could really see some of the changes quite quickly with sorting out.